Hello everybody, it's your favorite West Virginia now in space, and the new year has started. It's officially 2023, and that got me thinking about the past, because that makes sense. But it got me thinking about a childhood show I used to watch when I was much younger, Wild Kratts on PBS Kids. You probably, if you haven't seen it, if you didn't have PBS Kids or something, then you probably just vaguely know about it. It's not super popular, but a lot of people at least vaguely know it exists. And it was a fun show. It wasn't the best or anything. It wasn't super great, but it had its fun moments. But then it got me thinking about something. And the show doesn't really acknowledge this to any of my memory, but their powers are busted. If you actually think about what these characters can do, it's crazy. And so I thought to start off the new year, we'll talk about why the Wild Kratts are more powerful than you think. Let's begin. Before I talk about what I really want to talk about today, I think we should on some other abilities they possess. Simply put, first of all, they hang on a giant turtle-shaped airplane mech thing called the Tatug. I can't say the word right. Giant turtle ship, which is not on its own the most powerful thing in the universe, except for, it's a giant mechanized turtle that can fly. So already, pretty good start, but, a lot of characters have, giant not spaceships, but airship type things. But it is impressive. It has a ton of devices on it. Oh, and it has an inbuilt teleportation system. We'll get back to that. Some other abilities or technology they possess is, stuff like miniaturization, the ability to teleport objects, which I believe its state doesn't work very well on humans in most cases, but still the ability to teleport objects is more than useful. And I think in one episode they had a time machine, I think, but I don't recall much about that one. But overall, those are side abilities. But the teleportation one is important for later, so keep a memory on that. Another thing that's worth mentioning is, these two people, Chris and Martin, they're real people. And I don't mean in the sense that there's obviously it's kind of a pseudo self-insert kind of thing. Because, the opening of every episode and the end of it is them in live action. Wait a second. Now you might think, it's just a silly skit, like them talking about something. Yeah, usually that would be it. It'd be completely disconnected. It would have no real connection to the cartoon, except for they voice act and are presumably the same character, but, it's a different universe or whatever. Except for the fact that at the start of every episode, after doing their first live action segment, they literally just teleport into the fictional world. In the universe of Wild Kratts, Chris and Martin are actually the same people. They are not different or a cartoonized version. They can just do that. Now, it's never explained to my knowledge or really acknowledged, and I don't know if it's some innate ability these two possess in this universe, or if it's some element of their technology at work, because the effect is very similar to their teleportation, or stuff like the miniaturization as well, so I couldn't tell you exactly, but the point is, they can hop between universes, at least between the quote-unquote real world and their cartoon world. We'll get back to that. Overall, that would make them pretty impressive with all those technological gadgets. However, they can go a step further with their creature suits, or creature vest, or however it's called. I can never remember exactly, but those things. So, they aren't just for show and to look silly. Those are practical devices. They actually do stuff. In case you didn't somehow not pick up on one of the premises of the show, they can take the DNA of animals into creature discs and use them to turn into any animal. Let me phrase that in a slightly different way. They can take the abilities of any animal, and even other things too. There was one episode where one of them turned into a tree. It seems like their powers are just has to be a life form. It doesn't need to be specifically a animal, which is impressive, but ultimately I don't know what tree powers are going to be terribly useful for. However, that's where I get to this. There is no real limit on their power. Now, sometimes they have to shrink down in order to turn to small animals, I believe, but that is not even remotely something they have to worry about much, because, like I said, that miniaturization thing is a mobile thing. But more importantly, any animal is game, and they very quickly collect a very big list of creature discs. So, granted, they still need the disc inside the suit, but already the support team can very quickly make a new disc of pretty much any animal they see. as long as it has some DNA or something to work off of, which, yes, is a feature the suit has, is to be able to scan DNA to make more discs. Now, of course, the discs have to be brought to them, but oh wait, they have a teleportation machine that can possibly travel in between universes. So yeah, it's not exactly a worry they have to worry too much about. However, this does ask a few questions. What are the limitations of this ability, this suit technology? Well, it is described as a prototype, and it does kind of act like it. Similar to, Ben 10, which, as someone pointed out once, has quite a few comparisons of the abilities. But it does have some weaknesses. One is that, especially when they're not activated, they seem quite vulnerable to a lot of things. Piercing, slashing, electricity seems to be decent ways to damage it. However, in animal form, it seems more resilient. However, like I said, this is prototypes the show has slowly been having the characters improve upon. AKA, you might not be able to use some of these weaknesses against them. And also, depending on how the suit glitches out, it might not be in your favor to break it. Of course, it can be broken to the point of non-use. But of course, that assumes you survive long enough. Because there's a lot of abilities they can already tap into. Seriously, I looked at the list of creature discs they confirmed to have, and it's a lot, bro. I do have to wonder, where are they getting all this money for all this research and technology? Like, someone has to be funding them, right? Like, who's funding for all this research? Like, is the Finnish government hiring them out so when they get into a war, like, oh, they can play with their animals, but the moment the war starts, they're sent to the front lines against whoever. But now, of course, all that powers is nice and all, and the show kind of addresses what you can do with them. But of course, this is a silly PBS show, so naturally the characters are peaceful. But what if they weren't? What's the maximum this power can reach? Now, of course, the Wild Kratts universe, outside of certain technological marvels, is pretty normal to ours, so there isn't a whole lot of weird things to take evidence DNA from. However, let's say you drop them into a universe where there were some special animals. Like, let's say you drop them into a universe with dragons. Assuming the dragon has DNA, they could probably take the dragon and then turn into a dragon, or at least gain all of its powers, which is not good for you, but it gets worse. Theoretically, any fictional creature would be capable of doing this, or any life form they come in contact with. So just pick any super dangerous life form across fiction, like let's say Xenomorph, and oh, now they have Xenomorph's powers. Or hey, they want to be a predator, now they're a predator. But it gets worse, as theoretically, this would work on named characters too. So let's say they get into a fight with Superman, and Superman's being holding back for a bit because he doesn't want to beat up these two Australian-looking dudes. And then they just slap him in the face. Then a few seconds later, a random disc pops up. Then, oh look, now they have all Kryptonian powers. And remember, they usually have the ability of pretty much whatever the animal can do. So theoretically, whatever ability, say Superman or whoever has, now they have. And once again, they usually gain the durability of whatever creature they took, so might not be super easy to damage the suit. Maybe. It's kind of inconsistent. The show's not super consistent of how durable the suit is, so that may be less of a point. But once again, we have the offensive power with theoretically Superman. Yeah, that will work. Of course, one may logically ask the question of, well, of course, how far can we stretch the ability? Now, it kind of depends of how animal works. Generally speaking, it seems to be a generic version of the animal they take, but theoretically, it might work on anything that has sufficiently divergent new DNAs. So, could they, walk up to the X-Men, slap, Wolverine, and now they're Wolverine? I mean, they probably won't get the adamantium claws, but everything else might be game. And, well, that could be pretty bad, depending on who they take. Oh yeah, now they just can regenerate like Wolverine, or, do magnetic stuff like Magneto, or, heck, they could maybe even take powers like Hulk or Captain America. Now, generally speaking, instincts have been shown to occasionally overpower them inside the suit, so maybe don't take the Hulk. But there's a lot. What about Asgardians? Could they take Thor's powers? Just, slap Thor and now they're Asgardian? That probably wouldn't give you the hammer, but that's a lot, man. And that's another question. If the characters aren't interested in weaponizing it, how far could you? Could you theoretically splice a DNA sample of just, the most dangerous animals and creatures across the multiverse, which characters have some ability to travel between universes, since we see them do it, So does that mean that they could just splice together some horrifying abomination, like just mix everything, and then, oh yeah, now we have the powers of everything. Go die. Like, how far can this ability go? Like, if they were to walk into World of Darkness and slap a werewolf, do they get, like, Genosis? Do they get that? How far does this ability lodge? How far can this suit be taken? Just how dangerous are they? Like realistically here, these guys are walking around with quite possibly the most powerful weapons. Like, yeah, it's very similar to kind of Beast Boy power of the Omnitrix, but it still has a few flares of its own and once again, I'd still say something like the Omnitrix is more powerful, but that doesn't help you when, random two dudes you're fighting turn into Superman and start eye-beaming you to death. That doesn't help you much. So anyway, all I can say is that the Finnish government is getting their money's worth. But all that can be said, I hope you enjoyed this video. It's kind of a silly one, but it's something I wanted to talk about because once I had this horrifying realization, I had to share it to the world. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all next time. Yeah? Hey, why don't you hit that sub button? You're gonna become a subscribble. Get to see my content quicker. Wouldn't that be nice? I bet so.